I'm Dr. Viditi Vadi, Index Department of Physiotherapy and Paramedical Sciences, demonstrator. Today's my topic is gait. Gait. Translatory progression of the body as a whole, produced by coordinated rotatory movement of the body segments. Lower extremities carry the weight of the head, arms, and trunk. Gait is a medical term to describe human locomotion or the way that we walk. Interestingly, every individual has a unique gait pattern. Definition. Physiological definition. It is a mechanism which depends upon closely integrated action of subject, bone, muscle, and nervous system, including peripheral and central nervous system. The degree of integration determines the different gait pattern. Any defects of any part of them or all of them will lead to pathological gait. Prerequisites of gait. There are four major criteria essential to walking: equilibrium, the ability to assume an upright posture and maintain balance. Second, locomotion, the ability to initiate and maintain rhythmic stepping. Third, musculoskeletal integrity, normal bone, joint, and muscle function. Fourth, neurological control, must receive and send messages telling the body how and when to move, visual, vestibular, auditory, sensory, motor input. Force for gait, muscular force, gravitational force, force of momentum, flow reaction force. Gait cycle definition. Normal gait. Series of rhythmical alternating movements of the trunk and limb which result in the forward progression of the center of gravity. Series of controlled falls. Gait cycle spans two successive events of the same limb, usually initial contact of lower limb. One cycle has stance and swing phase. Gait cycle definition. Gait cycle. Single sequence of functions by one limb begins when reference phone contacts the ground and with subsequent floor contact of the same foot. Gait cycle definition. The step length is equal distance between corresponding successive points of heel contact of the opposite feet. Right step length is equal to left step length in normal gait. Kinematics of the gait. Phases of the gait cycle. Stance phase and swing phase. Events in stance phase. Traditional and second Rancher's Loss Amigos classification. Traditional first, heel strike, foot flat 7%, mid stance 30%, heel of 40%, toe of 60%. Rancher's Loss Amigos classification. First, initially contact, loading response, mid stance, terminus stance, pre-swing. Events in swing phase. Traditional and Rancher's Loss Amigos classification. Traditional. First, acceleration, mid swing, deceleration. Rancher's Loss Amigos. Initial swing, mid swing, and terminal swing. Double support. In normal walking speed, each period of double support occupies about 11% of the gait cycle, 22% of full cycle. The body supported by only one limb for nearly 80% of the gait cycle. Each gait cycle can be described in the phasic term. The stance phase is divided to heel strike to foot flat through mid stance through heel off to toe off. The stance phase, heel strike, instant at which the heel of the leading extremity strike the ground, foot flat immediately after heel strike, and it is the point at which the foot fully contact the ground. Mid stance, point at which the body weight is directly over the supporting extremity. Heel off, point at which heel of the reference extremity leaves the ground. toe off, point at which only the toe of the ipsilateral extremity is in contact with. Rancher's loss amigos classification convention, the stance and swing pads. Phases of gait cycle. Period, task, and phases. Gait cycle, stance, and swing. The stance by weight acceptance and single limb support. Weight acceptance, IC and LR. Single limb support, MST, TST, and PSW. Swing phase, limb advancement, ISW, MSW, and TSW. The stance period consists of the first five phases, initially counting, loading response, mid stance, and terminal stance. Initially contact is an instantaneous point in time only and occurs the instant the foot of the leading lower limb touches the ground. Most of the motor function that occurs during initially contact is in preparation for the loading response phase that will follow. Initially contact represent the beginning of the stance phase. Heel strike and heel contact serve as poor descriptors of this period, since there are many circumstances when initially contact is not met with the heel alone. The term full strike sometimes is used as an alternative descriptor. Loading response. The loading response phase occupies about 10% of the gait cycle and constitutes the period of initially double limb support. During loading response, the foot comes in full contact with the floor and body weight is fully transferred onto the stance limb. The initial double support stance period occasionally is referred to as initial stance. The term foot flat is the point in time when the foot becomes plantar grade. The loading response period probably is best described by the typical quantified values of the vertical force curve. The ascending initially peak of the vertical force graphs reveals mid-stance. Mid-stance represent the first half of single support, which occurs from the 10 to 30% period of the gait cycle. It begins when the contralateral foot leaves the ground and continue as the body weight travel along the length of the foot until it is aligned over the forefoot. The descending initially peak of the vertical force graph reveals the period of mid-stance. Terminal stance. Terminal stance constitutes the second half of single limb support. It begins with heel rise and ends when the contralateral foot contacts the ground. Terminal stance occur from the 30 to 50% period of the gait cycle. The term heel off is a descriptor useful in observational analysis, and it is the point during the stance phase when the heel leaves the ground. The ascending second peak of the vertical force graph demonstrates the period of terminal stance. Roll-off describes the period of late stance from the 40 to 50% period of the gait cycle, where there is an ankle plantar flexor movement and simultaneous power generation of the triceps sure to initiate advancement of the tibia or the fulcrum of the metatarsal head in preparation for the stance phase. Pre-swing. Pre-swing is the terminal double limb support period and occupies the last 12% of stance phase. From 50% to 62%, it begins when the contralateral foot contacts the ground and ends with ipsilateral toe off. During this period, the stance limb is unloaded, and body weight is transferred onto the contralateral limb. The descending portion of the second peak of the vertical force demonstrates the period of pre-swing. Terminal contact, a term rarely used, describe the instantaneous point in the gait cycle when the foot leaves the ground. It does represent either the end of the stance phase or the beginning of swing phase. In pathologies where the foot never leaves the ground, the term foot drag is used. In foot drag, the termination of stance and the onset of swing may be somewhat uh, arbitrary. The termination of stance and the onset of swing is defined as the point where all portions of the foot have achieved motion relative to the floor. Likewise, the termination of swing and the onset of stance may be defined as the point when the foot and motion relative to the floor toe off occurs when termination contact is made with the toe. Swing phase is defined as the interval in which the foot is not in contact with the ground. 40% of gait cycle denotes the time when the foot is in air, constituting the remaining 38% of the gait cycle. The swing phase could be defined as a phase when all portions of the foot are in forward motion. Acceleration begins on the toe of the reference extremity leaves the ground and continues until mid-swing. Mid-swing, when the ipsilateral extremity passes directly beneath the body. Deceleration after mid-swing when the tibia passes beyond the perpendicular and knee is extending the preparation for the heel strike. Swing is divided into two phases, acceleration to mid-swing, mid-swing to deceleration. The swing period primarily is divided into three phases, initial swing, mid-swing, and terminal swing. Pre-swing, however, prepare the limb for swing advancement and in that sense could be considered a component of swing phase. Initial swing. The initial one-third of the swing period from the 62 to 75% period of the gait cycle is spent in initial swing. It begins the moment the foot leaves the ground and continues until maximum knee flexion occurs when the swinging extremity is directly under the body and directly opposite the stance limb. Mid-swing. Mid-swing occur in the second third of the swing period from 75 to 85% period of the gait cycle. Critical events include continued limb advancement and foot clearance. This phase begins following maximum knee flexion and ends when the tibia is in a vertical position. Terminal swing. In the final phase of terminal swing, from the 85 to 100% period of the gait cycle, the tibia passes beyond perpendicular and the knee fully extended in preparation for heel contact. Gait terminology. Temporal variable. Stance time, single limb and double time. Swing time, stride and step time. Cadence and speed. Distance variable. Stride length, step length, weight, degree of toe out. Distance variables. Stride length is the linear distance between two successive events that are accomplished by the same lower extremity. It is measured from the point of one heel stride of one lower extremity to the point of the next heel stride of the same extremity. Because elderly patients and increased speed of the gait increases. Distance variable. Cadence. Number of steps. Unit of time. It is usually measured step per minute. Adult men 110 steps per minute. Adult men 116 steps per minute. Gait terminologies. Step width. Measuring the linear distance between the midpoint of the heel of one foot and the same point of the other foot. The step width increase in elderly person and children as they demand more stability. In young children, COG is higher than in adults as wide base of support is necessary for stability. Normal width 3.5 inches and varies between 1 to 5 inches. Double support time increase in elderly person and in those with balance disorders. decrease as the speed of walking increases. Gait cycle definition. Stride length is equal to distance between successive point of heel contact of the same foot. Double the step length in normal gait. Gait cycle definition. Cadence is equal to number of steps per unit time. Normal 100 to 115 steps per minute. Cultural plus social variations. Gait cycle definition. Velocity is equal to distance covered by the body in unit time, usually measured in per second. Instantaneous velocity varies during the gait cycle. Average velocity minute per is equal to step length m and cadence step per minute. Comfortable walking speed is equal to least energy consumption per unit distance. Average is equal to 80 minute per minute. Degree of toe, angle of foot placement, and may be found by measuring the angle found by each foot's of progression and a line intersection setting the center of heel and second toe. Gait cycle components, phases, stance phase, reference limb in contact with the floor, swing phase, reference limb not in contact with the floor. Gait cycle components, support, single support, only one foot is contact with the floor, double support with feet in contact with floor. Gait cycle subdivision, stance phase, heel contact, initially contact, foot plate, loading response, initially contact of forefoot, the ground, mid stance, greater trochanter in alignment with vertical dissectors of foot, heel off, terminus stance, toe off, pre-swing. Gait cycle subdivision, swing phase, acceleration, initial swing, mid swing, swinging, limb overtakes, the limb is stance, deceleration, terminal swing, path of center of gravity. Center of gravity midway between the hips, few centimeter front of S2. Least energy consumption in CG. Travel in straight line. Path of center of gravity. Vertical displacement. Rhythmic up and down movement. Highest point mid distance. Lowest point double support. Average displacement 5 centimeter. Path extremely smooth sinusoidal curve. Path of center of gravity, lateral displacement, rhythmic side-to-side movement, lateral limit, mid-distance, average displacement, 5 centimeter path, extremely smooth sinusoidal curve. Determinants of gait. 6 optimization used to minimize excursion of CG in vertical and horizontal planes, reduce significantly energy consumption of ambulation, classic peppers, standards, in 1953. Determinants of gait, pelvic rotation. Forward rotation of the pelvis in the horizontal plane approx 8 on the swing face side. Reduce the angle of hip flexion and extension. Enables a slightly longer step length with further lowering of CG. Gait analysis forces. Forces which have the most significant influence are due to gravity, muscular contraction, inertia, floor reaction. Gait analysis forces. The forces that the foot exert on the floor due to gravity and inertia is opposed by the ground reaction force. Ground reaction force may be resolved into horizontal and vertical components. Understanding joint position and RF leads to understanding of muscle activity during gait analysis. At initial heel contact, heel transient, at heel contact, ankle, knee, hip. Ankle DF, knee quads, hip, gluteus maximus, and hamstring. Gait analysis. At initial heel contact, heel transient. At heel contact, ankle, knee, hip, quads, gluteus maximus, and hamstring. Gait. Low muscular demand. 20-25% maximum muscle length, MMT free. Thank you.